All right, guys, thanks for joining. We're here at Impressions Long Beach in California. We're here to interview Rick from Brother on a topic that, as you guys know, Shawn and I are extremely passionate about, and that's DTG, especially partnered with Brother. So, Rick, thanks for joining us today.
Good morning, Zach.
How's the show been so far?
So far, so good.
Awesome.
Saturday, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be a busy one. We were pretty jammed yesterday. It looks like there was a lot of buzz, so everyone
Absolutely.
was busy. The Brother booth was booming.
Yeah, exactly.
Super exciting. Cool.
Is it me or the show has actually grown? I think I've been here 4 years now, and I feel like yesterday I was trying to find my place in this feels like bigger spot than it's ever been, or maybe it's just there's more exhibitors. Like the industry, there's a lot of people yesterday too, so just trying to find my place. And I was like calling Zach, hey, where's the Brother booth, where I need to go? And there's massive signs everywhere, like Brother's massive. But I just feel like the industry's growing, especially now, like after COVID, after online sales are growing. There's so many people here at the show. So it was cool to see you guys, see the Brother booth full pack with people. So yeah, how did this show go for you so far, and how's it going?
So far, with the digital line and the GTX 600, we've had some great folks stopping by and just inquiring about our products, understanding, where is our GTX 600 Hexa, for example, what kind of new technologies Brother working on. In terms of the digital line, I think a lot of folks haven't seen this particular product, so they want to know, what are the capabilities? How many shirts per hour? How large can I print? Does it include inline pre-treat? There's just a lot of unknowns, and I think, one of the things that, in terms of DTG, a lot of these customers are gravitating towards inline pre-treat. And the digital line solves that problem.
Sure. I mean, there's a big push towards automation. Obviously, it's more and more challenging to get labor, and we've seen that trend going on for a while. So, Rick, let's talk about a little bit about your history in the industry. How long have you been a Brother? Talk a little bit about your role. Kind of give the listeners a little bit more understanding about what you do at the company.
Yeah, so I'm the business development manager at Brother. I oversee the GTX 600 and the digital line products. And we also have an innovation center in Memphis, Tennessee, where we're able to host you for testing, for samples, to basically run the machines yourself before you make a decision on what kind of DTG, DTF products you'd like to purchase for your business.
Great. Yes, man, it's a great way to obviously, I mean, these are not small investments, obviously. It's not a little craft DTG machine, something you want to get in, get your hands on, play with some samples, and this is a great recommendation for those who are unable, unfortunately, to make it to the show. That facility is always up and open. Reach out to Brother directly, and
Reach
you guys
out
will.
to Zach.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Reach out to Zach.
If you're in Canada only, my
you're
business
in Canada,
stops at the border.
Perfect.
Excellent. So let's talk about the GTX 600 line. As you know, the two of you guys are working on the first installation in Canada, which is now at Shawn at Printies. You've had it now for
A few months, right?
a few months now. Yeah. So let's talk about the GTX 600 platform. So, I got in at the GT381. From there, went to the GTX Pro B, and the GTX 600, and now the GTX 600 Hexa, which is the newest addition to the Brother digital platform. What did Brother do in this platform to really separate itself from the competition, from all the other machines that you're seeing here around the facility?
So the GTX 600 was designed for mass production. We are talking up to 60 dark garments per hour, built-in humidifier, print size up to 24 by 24 inches, and it is self-maintaining, so a lot less cleanings. You're looking at cleanings every 3 weeks or 7,500 prints instead of once a week, for example. So your operators can focus on what's most important to your business, and that is getting printed shirts out the door and generating more revenue.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you mentioned the 24-inch by 24-inch print area, which is massive.
Massive.
I don't know what you've come up with any ideas, Ed, as to what you're doing that. Customers ask me all the time, like, hey, 24 inches is huge on a shirt. Do you have any ideas with what you're going to crank out with that? And what do you see some customers doing with that print area?
Personally, the band merch, wrestling merch, streetwear, those particular avenues are gravitating towards our 24 by 24 print size.
Just bandanas.
Yeah.
Think about bandanas. So like even for us, a lot of times doing screen printing, a lot of clients would ask, oh, can I get bananas? And we're like, oh yeah, obviously, of course, but our max print area is 16 by 24 inches long, right? Which is just massive for screen printing still, but your bandana is always a 22 by 22, right? So your clientele doesn't want a 16 inch wide. So you're gonna have to outsource them, get them sublimated. Now with that, the DTG, Well, it's a no-brainer. We can buy white bandanas and all over print over them.
On both sides.
On both, it's beautiful, right? So that's an aspect I didn't even think of. But when we got the machine, I was like, oh, guys, now the sales team, we can push it, we can put this on the website, and it's easy to do, it's easy to run. Yeah. So that's a big plus for us.
I remember even at the Innovation Center when I was there, I think you guys had some bath mats, so people are trying to figure out ways to use them for, some home goods as well, which is a cool idea. I think you had some pillows there at some point as well.
Pillowcases, towels, bath mats, absolutely.
So people are obviously using this for an application outside of just, apparel decoration.
That's a market within it. Like, you could just do bat robes or whatever, like, that's a smart business. Like, that's a really big niche. People don't even think about that. Like, well, those machines can run just for that. Like, you have a whole shop just running those.
I think that's one of the really cool things that Brother's always done to separate themselves. You look at a lot of the other platforms, Brother's ability to to print on shoes. I've seen some Converse shops, for example. They got the plain white Converse. You got the really cool AccuLine. Helps you take a perfect image of the product that you're printing on, position to print perfectly. So I think that's a strength that Brother's always done. The ability to print over zippers, for example, on hoodies. What other crazy stuff? The what is it? The tuck kit? No.
Gripper kit.
Gripper kit, yeah.
Kit.
Gripper kit. We see guys who are putting denim over and tucking it in on both sides, and bags, and I feel like
a lot of tote bags as well.
Yeah, tote bags are big, and those are money makers. I mean, you're printing those things in like 15 seconds, and the CC count is nothing on that. So I've seen bags getting printed for 5, 6, 7 cents. And it's a great way, and they can be customizable, right? So if you're doing an event for someone and you have 300 employees, if you could figure a way to quickly rip the files and print it with everyone's name on. So yeah, it's that's one thing that I think Brother's always done a really good job on, is basically saying, hey, this is a digital print machine, but it's not just for apparel. And that's always been a sales pitch for me as well. When people are looking at other platforms, it's like, is this all that you want to do? Do you literally just want to do apparel? I've even seen guys doing you got koozie jigs and coaster jigs. They have the wraparound. So I don't know if you've seen this, but you could actually print over the shoulder onto the back. You could print starting here around the side, over seams. Like, all these things are generally almost impossible to do with screen printing unless you're doing cut and sew. So yeah, it's.
Oh yeah, I did see that palette for the big shoulder print and all that for the Brother. That's nice.
Can't run it through the digital line, but
no. And like, for me, I'm super interested about the digital line, and one of the biggest factors as to why we went with the GTX 600 when the business was growing was the ability to scale with that, right? So I think Brother has in mind the smaller printer that's going to grow, that's not going to have to switch all his machines out or maybe buy more production machines. You can start with one GTX 600, you can buy another one, and then when you have two, you can think about the digital line. For us, that was massive, right? You look at all the other machines, not to say that the other machines are not good, because we were thinking about a Polaris, Rock Now, and all these machines. For us, it's really about redundancy. It's like, okay, well, what happens if that $800,000 machine goes down? Well, I'm not up and running. So if I have 2, 3, 4 GTX 600 on my inline, I'm still able to pump out shirts. So for us, that was one of the biggest decisions we had into facing all the options. It was like, okay, well, how are we going to scale with this? Having the option to scale and not right now drop $800,000, we can start with this and grow. That's the biggest advantage for me as a shop owner. It was like, okay, let's start with this and being able to scale. So having that platform available is huge, right?
And that is exactly right. The system is modular.
Yeah.
So you are able to start with a single printer. And if you wanted to scale your business to a 4-printer DL2400, printing up to 180 units per hour, you can do
single
that
operator,
with one
fully
operator,
cured,
full color,
no needed dryer on the back end.
No one-step process. That shirt comes off, it's ready to be bag tagged and shipped to your customer.
And I didn't get that when it first came out on the videos. It was coming out and it was like showing how it was done. And luckily, I think I came here last year or the year before, and it was there the first time. And that's where I understood. I was like, okay, this is what we need. Like, this is how we're going to scale in the business. So maybe, like, people don't see this, but Rob's the guy shooting around. Rob's going to catch some B-roll footage, or all the people that, like, for me, I saw like short clips, videos. I didn't understand it was fully cured, fully done. So guys, like, watching this right now, if you're a shop owner, Rob, please film a bunch of really good B-roll. We're going to put it up just so you understand. Like, for me, it was hard to comprehend how it was possible to go in, pre-treat inline. Okay, now it's heat press, like people don't think, but yeah, there's a heat press in the machine. Heat press a shirt, mats the fibers down, prints, goes through an oven, and now the shirt's done. So, and it even tells you like, okay, you got to print the back, flip the shirt, print the back, so your shirts are complete. It's hard to comprehend when you just see the small video. Like, it's really good, the rendering, but seeing in person, completely different.
And that's why I think it's so important to come to these shows, right? I mean, there's only so much that you can gather, even if you're very well versed in the industry. I mean, there's things that, from some of our suppliers that we sell, and until I actually saw it in person, like, oh wow, this makes sense. You know what I mean? And I sell the product, right? So it's very important to get out to these shows. Talking about, mentioning that it's coming off fully cured. Like, I've seen some customers, it's coming off the back end, and it's like, do I put it in the dryer? And you're like, no, it's done. Like, I can put it in my bag, it's going home. You know what I mean?
That's what I didn't get. I was like, okay, well, where's the dryer after the print, like the printers, right? But the system goes and the printers where they're placed, it's right after the pre-treat, and then you get the oven, and then it goes back. So it rotates, it's a full rotational print, comes back to the printer. That's just pulling off the shirt, putting the other one in. But yeah, for me,
that is one of the areas that makes that system very unique.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you save a lot of labor. Like a shop owner, like, not to sell anything about Brother, but like for me, I'm thinking it's hard to get labor now. And one of the jobs that's not that fun is just picking shirt at the end of the oven, right? So if you can replace that, the guy that's printing, putting that and stacking that on a cart, and then your QC comes and takes the cart, goes. For me, it's like, okay, well, the job's more fun.
Yeah.
It's easier to hire more people, and it's able to scale. Exactly.
And if you wanted to double your capacity, you could run 2 shifts.
Exactly.
You'd only need 1 person for that second shift.
Yeah.
So,
and depending on your levels of automation, I mean, one cool thing about this is you don't need to batch all your black shirts and then all your yellow shirts and all your blue shirts. If you're familiar with the POD game, the way that the orders are entered into your system, as they're coming in, basically they're spitting out barcodes, right? Yes, you could, decide to print all your barcodes every 3 or 4 hours, and then those will batch the blacks and the whites and the hoodies and the onesies all together. But the ability to basically print all your barcodes, pop them onto the garment, and scan the blue shirt, which is going to have a different profile than the yellow shirt, which is a different profile that's going to be on the black hoodie, really takes the print quality to the next level and eliminates the amount of error that you could see, right? That's one of the biggest issues when guys are using, a standalone pre-treat machine with no automation. Yes, every single garment, as you know, should be weighed. You should be testing the amount of pre-treat, seeing if there's discoloration. It's very hard to do that and constantly have someone selecting through profiles.
Zach, your operator is simply scanning the barcode on the garment and hitting the start button.
Mm-hmm.
It is a scan and go process. They're not changing any data. They are not changing a profile or anything like that. All those profiles were created when we did the machine implementation in the beginning.
Totally. And we see customers that unfortunately don't have the luxury of this level of automation. They're basically, when I go to the shop, they're like, we have 2 profiles. We got maybe 3. We got a black profile or darks, we got a light profile, and a hoodie profile. And that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And again, sometimes they mess those up. They forget, oh, okay, I'm going from blacks to lights. Now what happens? You sprayed all those light shirts with extra pre-treat, run them through the dryer, and then you're getting discoloration. So and another thing that you touched on, both you guys, was redundancy. And that's the biggest feature that I see when it comes to this platform, specifically when carrying it to some of the other ones that you had mentioned, is you have that redundancy. As you know, in this technology, generally where you're going to see the issue is on the print head. So if you basically got, one channel that's printing darks and one that's printing lights, you have an issue. Sorry, the CMYK and the white. Something happens to the CMYK, your entire production line is down. And I think what's super unique about this one is, let's say you do have the 4-printer model. If you do have an issue with one printer, you're still at 75% capacity. The odds of even having a second printer go down is next to nothing. So in a worst case scenario, you could say, hey, we're going to have 75% capacity, and we could go working on, I'm assuming, the other one to get it up and running.
Get it back up and running as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So can you explain why? I mean, people obviously will have some B-roll footage going of showing how the shirts are basically fed into the machines, but what is it that gives us the ability? Because a lot of people looking at this, they're just going to think, hey, every single print is basically going to get fed through each through each printer. So can you talk a little bit about the track system and how that gives you the ability to have the redundancy?
So the printers are running individually. So you can essentially be printing up to 4 shirts at the same time.
Yeah.
Unlike some of the other systems out there that have a white printing station and a color printing station, the digital line has 4 separate printers. So as Zach mentioned, if one printer is down, maybe you have to replace a print head. The other 3 printers are still going to run your production.
Yeah.
So you have printer redundancy built into the system.
Yeah. And another really cool thing that I don't know if you know about this yet, when the shirt is, let's say, pre-treated or scanned, that's not when it's allocated to the printer. As you know, a left chest can be much quicker than a full-length print, which can be much quicker than a 12 by 12. Basically the shirt sits in queue, correct, until one shirt comes out of the printer, and then it's allocated. So it's not waiting to go in
So
series.
it could skip the first one, go to the second, depending on how. Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
The system is going to send the garment to the next available printer, and the operator does not need to know about any of this.
So that's
They're
why
simply
he's
scanning.
able to print that many shirts an hour, because he can load slower, but as long as he's feeding the 4 machines, he's going to be fine.
For sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't get yesterday. I was like, how is he loading slower, but then the machine goes through and it's quicker because it's feeding depending on which machine.
Yeah, and I mean,
Makes a lot of sense.
you see these, people are like, oh, 180 shirts an hour, like that guy's really hustling. Yeah, maybe in the digital world it might seem like much, but look at the screen printers. I mean, they do contests here sometimes, and guys are doing 1,100 units an hour. Yeah, they're probably all crooked, but 180 units per hour for a semi-experienced operator is not. I mean, when you're running the auto, what are you hitting?
850.
Yeah, 850. You know what I mean? So 180.
I'm a pretty good
But
shirt
those aren't full
puller.
color prints.
No, 100%. But I'm just saying that I could do
With
850.
all one-off designs. either.
Exactly.
So
So
it's
I can
relative
do-
to your business.
Correct.
Yeah.
Totally.
But if you compare, like you can run 850 an hour on screen printing press, and then you're doing 180 here, the guy's not slacking, but I mean, he's having time, right?
Well, if-
he's able to put the shirt. Like people say, oh, well, he's going to scan it. How long is that going to take? Like, think about it.
Second.
It's a
Yeah.
second or two. And
And when you look at 180 units per hour, you're gonna have time to load that shirt and edit this video. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Plan out the next podcast, maybe do a little stock trading. You got some time, a lot of time to think, maybe read a book. So yeah, it's really not that challenging. Yeah, if you're doing 180 units per hour on, let's say, 4 Pro Bs or something like that, 3 Pro Bs, it becomes much more challenging. There's a lot more hands on
You're
each
going to
garment.
need probably 4 to 5 resources.
Yeah.
Pre-treat, manual heat press,
Yeah.
where the digital line, the full DTG cycle is automated.
Totally, yeah. So I mean, you walk around the show now, and there's a very common theme in probably 30% of the booths, and it's DTF. It's popping up everywhere. We got into it 3 years ago. It's been known overseas for a long time. Everyone was importing these transfers, and nobody was able to figure out how are they happening. It was magic. They would order them, they would get shipped next day from China or whatever. So DTF has made a huge splash into our industry. It's been a very heavy topic that we've talked about over the last couple podcasts, minus the last one with Lee. But let's talk about DTF. What's been Brother's approach? How is Brother battling against DTF, looking at solutions like this? What's kind of their take on it? How are they doing with it? And what's kind of been their focus?
So direct-to-film has its place in the market for sure. And Brother has taken its GTX Pro Series printers and created a roll feed attachment to create a roll-to-roll DTF printer. If you stop by the Brother booth at the show, we do have our DTF printer here. Brother offers a great solution for DTF printing that has a history of being reliable. And I think that's what really sets Brother apart from the competition. Our Pro Series has been in the market for over 4 years, and we know it's reliable. And we basically created the DTF printer from the GTX Pro DTG printer, and extended that reliability onto our DTF offering now.
For sure.
That's what we run at the shop all day, every day, right? So, and then we don't even use the roll system. We just have Graphics Lab up, and now we use reversal printing. So, like the reversal printing software in Graphics Lab is amazing. The vibrancy is super nice.
Yeah.
And now with the Hexa, right, we're lucky enough to have the 600 Hexa at the shop. And when we get those super vibrant orange or like those flash greens that we need to hit, we're just using DTF on the 600. And I mean, I've never seen colors pop off DTF that much.
Oh, they're huge.
Right, it's massive.
I mean, one of Brother's secret to success has always been their quality of ink. And I think that's why, we know the Brother DTF roll printer is not the fastest one out there, but you still see massive companies who are investing in it because they know it's going to be reliable, and they know it's going to be headache-free, and the quality is going to be where it needs to be. And speed's not always a good thing. We see some machines here right now, they got 4, 6, 8 heads, everything's flying, but the prints look terrible. You know, they're banding, the opacity's not good, the vibrancy's terrible, the hand feel isn't there either. So I think that, you know, although from a width perspective and a speed, Brother's not at the top right now, but I don't think they need to be, because at the end of the day, you'll get a higher percentage yield, but you know everything's going to be the way it should be.
Our speed has improved on our DTF roll-to-roll to 39 feet.
Okay, so that's not bad.
39 linear feet per hour.
What was it before?
So it was around 21.
Oh, wow.
So we've almost
doubled
the speed
But
of the
see, it's good I'm
DTF
at the show.
Yeah. But like me, when I'm thinking about the machine, I'm not even thinking about speed and output. I'm thinking about, hey, I'm able to use this as DTG. I'm able to use it as DTF. I want to get my feet into it.
Yeah.
Now I have 2 solutions for my client. That's where my head was at. You know, I bought 2 Chinese DTF machines way before everybody was thinking about DTF. I want to get my feet into it, and I was like, okay, we're going to do this just for neck tags. So we bought 2 Chinese machines. Nightmare. And actually started doing DTF on the Brother before the reversal program came out. I was going in Photoshop, flipping my images, printing my colors first, then doing my white on top, because I understood that the quality was second, like you couldn't get that nice quality. And then reversal came, CAD-Link came with a software too.
Made your life easier.
Made my life easier.
Big time.
But I was like, okay, this is amazing. Like the quality, I wasn't able to get that quality on any roll-to-roll machine, right? So that's why we switched to those. And now we're still able to offer DTG and DTF to our clients. So I think if you're a small shop, you look at, hey, what machine should I get my hands into? Well, if you want to offer DTG and DTF, I don't think there's any better solution than that. So yes, DTF roll-to-roll is going to print a lot faster, right? And it's cool, but what are you going to do when you want that DTG feel, that DTG look?
Yeah.
People are still looking for that. It's not like DTG's out. We just bought a big machine for DTG. The reason is
Brother.
because, yeah, Brother, right? We just bought the 600 Hexa.
Yeah. At the same time as a roll-to-roll DTF.
Exactly.
So he understands there's a place for both in the business.
There's a place for both, and your client is going to want both. Like they're asking for both. That's why we went that route, and it makes sense for us, right? So.
And I think that you nailed something right on the head, which is very important, is people who are getting into the space, you know, they don't have the capacity for a lot of these big roll-to-roll machines that you see out there. Those machines need to run. If you have that thing sitting idle 1 day, 2 day, 3 days a week, it's a big problem. So someone who's just trying to dip their toes in the water, get into apparel, decoration, having the flexibility of DTG and DTF has been great. You'd be surprised how many of my customers right now buy a brand new Brother and they're not getting a pre-treat. They're literally buying that hybrid solution to only do DTF printing.
Only. Sure.
Because you see a lot of customers, they're bringing these converted Epson printers. Those things are a nightmare. You're trying to get a machine to do something that it's not. And I'm on these forums all the time, and it's, I see customers, just bought this thing, ran it for a month, changed the print head, ran for a week, changed the print head. And it's so frustrating when I see, people trying to cut some corners and not invest in the equipment. Because I tell them, like, what's your business? And they're like, well, I want to print shirts. Okay, so to print shirts, you need a good machine. You don't want to be a technician, clearly, right? Or else you'll probably be working for me. So invest in something that's going to allow you to run your business. You should not have to wake up every morning, cross your fingers and say, I hope that this machine's going to print. You got to cross your fingers and say, I hope I'm going to have shirts to print, and I'm going to have the machine to push it out, right? The digital line is also, I think, one of the biggest tools that Brother's using to combat DTF. And people are like, well, how's that the case? I mean, the reason why the DTF has been successful is because it's going to reduce your labor costs, right? You can have
it eliminates the pre-treat process.
Exactly.
And I think that's why folks are gravitating towards DTF. With the digital line, it has the inline pre-treat.
Yeah.
Inline curing, inline printing, inline final ink cure.
Yeah. So I feel that Brother has made a very strong case to fight against DTF with their digital line as well, including the roll-to-roll, right? The digital line's been in the market now how long?
For over a year now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can you explain the difference between the two models? Maybe, let's talk about outputs. Who's the right person for this? So just, Shawn would go straight to the larger model, even if he's only buying one printer, because he's very ambitious and he always wants to grow. So Brother has that ability to start with one printer and extend. So if you could talk about the two different models.
Digital line comes in 2 different models, a DL2200, which is a 2 printer model, One operator, you're going to achieve up to 100 units per hour. Upgradable to 4 printers, where you're going to be able to get up to 180 units per hour. And again, it's the complete DTG cycle. So pre-treat, curing, automated heat press, inline printing, final ink cure.
Yeah.
And is there like, for example, like the pre-treat in the machine, is there automatic level so you know you have to refill? How does that work, right? The pre-treat system.
Yes, so there's actually a mixing system called Essential Source.
Okay.
Where you can connect directly to a 55-gallon drum of pre-treat,
Nice.
55-gallon drum of distilled water,
Yeah.
and you actually do all your mixing right there at the Essential Source. With the digital line, you can also run 2 different ratios. So you can have a ratio for your lighter garments
Yeah.
and one for your darker garments. And your profiles are going to determine which ratio that's going to use when the operator scans that barcode.
Yeah.
That's massive.
I mean, you could really, really, really get these prints dialed in, right?
Yeah.
Again, certain levels of
And
automation.
your team doesn't have to manually mix anymore.
Yeah,
No.
which is huge.
So
yeah.
you're,
Which
again,
is huge.
it's
So it's always gonna be
labor saving.
consistent.
Digital line, the main component is labor savings.
Yeah.
Labor savings, consistency, redundancy, like there's a
Eliminating
lot.
error. I mean, you
Eliminating
talk
error.
manual. You know, we used to do this sometimes. I remember back then it was like I
still
think
do
you'd
it.
have to mix it 2-to-1 with the
Sure.
older. So you'd be, and you know, we've been printing for 12, 14 hours straight. You're exhausted. You fill it up. You're like, wait, did I add water? Did I do 1? Is this 1-to-1? Is it 2-to-1? I don't. Okay, let's just do 1.5. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know because I mean, again, this is a production environment. People are busy. People are running around. People are tired. You know, it's difficult, right? Mistakes do happen.
It's been a well-received machine. We just released a case study with one of our customers, Redwall.
Yeah.
Please, Zach, you
talk
can
about
share
that.
you can share the testimonial with your customers.
Sure.
We just launched that about I think 2-3 weeks ago.
So what do they have to say about the equipment?
They're very happy with it.
Okay.
They've basically taken a task that took 5 to 6 operators down to 1 employee.
Wow.
So that was one of the reasons why they made the switch to the digital line in particular. But again, it's about the automation too.
Yeah.
And the operator's happy too because they don't have to manually pre-treat anymore. They're not getting their hands dirty.
Sure.
They're not manually heat pressing anymore.
Yeah.
And some employees don't necessarily want to do those tasks.
Yeah.
And when you're operating a machine like the digital line, it does make it easier for the operator and the employee to operate that machine because everything's automated.
Sure.
Let's send some love to Redwall.
Yeah.
So if you're not following them on Instagram, go follow them. Redwall's made me dream about this machine for a year. I think a year and a half almost. They were one of the first to go into it, and they're so good at showing videos and explaining how. So I saw it here last year, and then I went on their Instagram and was looking at everything. So shout out to Redwall, sending you some love. InkPod is sending you some love, right? Go follow their Instagram. It's really good.
What platform were they running previously?
They were running the GTX Pro series previously.
Pro Bs?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Before
Okay.
the digital line.
Another common common question that we get, and this is stepping away from the digital line, but customers come to me and they say, hey, GTX Pro, GTX Pro B, GTX 600, which one's the right for me?
It really depends on your volume.
Yeah.
For 100 to 1,500 shirts per month, GTX Pro. For 1,500 to 4,000 shirts per month, GTX Pro B. For anything above 4,000 shirts per month, you're going to look at the GTX 600.
Yeah, yeah.
And that would be our recommendations.
Sure.
But talk to Zach.
Yeah.
And let us kind of figure out.
And I'll tell you to talk to Rick or talk to Shawn.
Just call me.
And let us really understand what your objectives are, what your goals are, so we can determine the proper product.
For sure.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time. I mean, I have customers that come to me and say, hey, I want to buy a Pro B. Are you doing digital printing yet? No. Why do you want to buy a Pro B? Because I think it's the right one for me. And then you start asking these questions. Say, look, I never like being the sales guy that's going to sell you the biggest machine. Unless you tell me, hey, I know I'm not there now, but I'll get there in 6 months.
Unless your name is Shawn.
Unless you're Shawn. Then I'm telling you, Shawn, this is the top of the line. Don't bother looking at anything else. Let's talk about ink pricing. We don't have to go into a dollar value because that changes based on your location. But the Pro pricing has a different ink pricing than the Pro B, correct? And the Pro B is the same as the GTX 600.
Yes. So
Okay.
pricing for the GTX 600 starts at $140 a liter.
USD.
And we do have different ink tiers depending on how many printers you have. If
Yep.
you have a digital line, we have a digital line tier. So inquire depending on what product you're purchasing.
Yeah.
We
And those ink tiers, that's all public information in terms of, you have X amount of printers, this is your ink cost, so people know what they got to aspire to. And
For the most part, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And you don't have to go into pricing, but like, what are those tiers? I mean, we're not talking 200 printers.
So we have a 140 a liter tier,
Yep.
a 130 a liter
Based
tier.
on how many machines?
Once you hit 5 GTX 600s,
Yeah, so it's not much.
Once you hit 5 GTX 600s, you drop to 130.
Yep.
And then the next tier would be, you know, the 120 a liter tier.
Yep.
But you do have, it's 25 printers to get to that tier.
You got to be pumping some shirts. This is no longer a hobby Etsy business
Exactly.
at that point.
Well, at that volume, right, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because you have that volume, which is
15 to 18% ink savings.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's huge, huge. I mean, you have to realize guys that are buying these shirts, you know, like you said, 8-hour shift, you're, you know, pumping out, what, 1,500 shirts, you say is a good target?
I mean, if you're doing an 8-hour shift and you're doing 150, 160 shirts, you're going to be at least over 1,000 shirts in an 8-hour shift with, again, just one operator.
Yeah. So 15% ink savings is huge. Especially depending, I mean, there's some customers that print more corporate, but if you're printing for, you know, some of the clients that I used to print for big art prints, I mean, the savings are substantial from one to another, right?
Absolutely.
And print on demand is mostly large prints, and that's where this machine shines.
And I think that, you know, the whole ink pricing strategy was something that Brother had to really seriously look at. You know, Brother always, since day one, could say that they had the best quality. I owned some other machines, the ink was cheap, the quality was not there, okay? And you still see that now. But I think Brother getting more aggressive has opened the doors for them to get into some of these really large fulfillment houses that you couldn't with the, you know, GT381 platform, right? We had those, the GT381, they used to have these bulk loading systems where you would load white. They weren't the easiest to deal with, but even then the ink cost was nowhere near. So I think Brother saying, hey,
very market competitive ink pricing.
We
have for sure.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's still the pitch that you see from some of these other guys is like, oh, our ink pricing's cheaper. It's not. And one thing that I think the industry A doesn't realize, but B needs to become aware of, is that Brother's strategy is not to make money on service. Brother,
we don't have service contracts.
Exactly. Whereas a lot of these other brands, that's a big part of their business model. Yeah. You want to get on and talk with them, you're paying them $170 an hour, US, literally. You want to make sure that your machines are going to be up and running, you could be paying $25,000 to $30,000 per machine annually, and we're not talking unlimited heads. You might get a couple heads, right? So I think that's, even if somehow Brothers Ink was a little bit more expensive, when you look at all these other factors, you're spending more at the end of the day, right? And that's something very important that people need to realize.
I'd also like to point out that the Brother customer care team is available 5 days a week. And not only that, but we will certify your employees on our equipment. That's
crazy.
Which is huge.
So you can come to the Brother training facility in Memphis, Tennessee. It's typically a 4 or 5 day program. We will take apart the entire printer and put it back together again and certify your employees as if you're a Brother employee.
I did that myself.
And it's a very nominal fee for that training.
That's insane.
I mean, I remember we paid $7,500 US to fly someone out from another manufacturer to give us a 2-day training. We didn't know what we were doing by the end of it. And I used to send my technicians down. We had, I think 4 of us in total that went down to Tennessee. We had a great time. You guys are incredible hosts.
Great barbecue as well.
Yeah. Shout out to Fernando. He took us to some really good restaurants. We had a really, really good time. Listened to a lot of, there's a couple of blues spots I remember we went to, some great barbecue. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, Brother slogan's always been at your side, right?
Absolutely.
And I think they stand by that when it does come to their service. They want to empower the users to basically be self-sufficient. I think it's really important. Even when you're looking at things like head costs, I mean, the Brother head, first off, I've never seen a digital head go as long as a Brother. I have clients that are shockingly hundreds of thousands of prints, literally with the same print heads.
Our print head warranty on our GTX 600s is 1 year or 50,000 prints.
Insane. Yeah. But it goes well past that. I mean, if you're taking care of your machine, you're running it, you're in a good environment, which now this is even, it's still ideal to be in I mean, you don't want to put this thing in the desert, right? But the
built-in humidifiers,
huge.
Oh,
Extend the head life.
Give you a peace of mind for an ideal printing environment.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about ink costs, right? Well, for me as a shop owner, I look at the ink cost, but I also look at, all right, how much is my machine going to spit ink?
Yeah.
Right? If your machine is always recirculating ink and cleaning and all that, even if your ink cost is low, you're spending money there. With the 600, we're printing all day and it's not cleaning because we have the humidifier in there.
Yeah.
So that, for us, that was even more massive as like an in-cost consumption, in the sense that when we're printing, that's the only time we're spending money.
Yep.
The
Right.
built-in humidifier and the enhanced cleaning system is going to extend the longevity of your consumables, so such as your print heads and other consumables as well.
And increase output, because
Exactly.
so if it's doing more cleanings, it's stopping and
printing.
it's slowing things down. And I don't know if a lot of my customers know about it, but once you get to a certain scale, you really need to make sure everything's dialed in. And Brother actually has the ability. You could take a USB stick, you get a log, you send it to Brother, and they'll tell you, hey, I know you think everything's perfect. You got that little humidifier underneath there and you think you're in a good spot, but guess what? You're not changing the filters often enough and you're only operating 30% of the time in actual ideal environments. So Brother has the ability to get really, really, really dialed in and make sure that you're taking care of your machines to get the optimal output that they've been designed for.
And there's a lot of things that people don't know about Brother. I think even owners of Brother, right? Brother Academy.
Yeah.
For me, it's massive. My whole staff goes through-
Self-tutorials.
Yep. And more than that, you're having a problem with pre-treat. You're having a problem with like staining on your shirts of the white ink speckling. There's a solution for that. Like the Brother team, I don't know if it's the Brother team or like clients that partner with you guys to have these solutions. That's massive for us. Help us tremendously on like the grams of pre-treat we need per shirt. Testing the levels of highlights and mask.
Yep.
Like when we first get the machine installed, we don't know that. But having that test, you download the RIP file. There's a RIP file on Brother Academy. You can find it online. Masks and a highlight level. So if you have a GTX Pro, any Brother machine, go look on Google for the highlight and mask file and do that test. That's going to tell you exactly for each type of shirt you run, the highlight level for that shirt, the mask level for that shirt, and that's all available by Brother. I didn't pay for that system. I didn't pay for that.
We do not charge for it.
No, exactly. So it's massive.
You're not trying to make money off
We're
it?
not charging.
No, but
This might be a missed opportunity for you guys.
as a
You have
shop
to change your
owner-
slogan, but
as a shop owner, that's massive.
Yeah.
To be able to run your machine, and like for us, Zach knows I'm picky about quality. So we do run these tests every time we run a new shirt in the shop, right? So if we're switching from the next level to a Bella or whatever, because the client wants that, we're going to test that shirt out first. And we know exactly what's the best highlight, what's the best mask for that shirt. And then you can also test the whiteness.
Yeah.
All the RIP files are there. So go watch a video on Brother Academy and find those. That helped us tremendously. But yeah, I think that's the thing that people forget, that you have that support there and it's always there and available.
Sure.
for Brother.
So Brother's seen a huge surge during the pandemic. A lot of retail, especially early on, retail was closed. People still got to buy gifts. People still got to buy new shirts. Kids are growing. So you saw a massive, all over, I know Canada, US was crazy, but a huge surge into POD, right? Everyone started getting into, for those of you that don't know, print on demand, the ability to go on a website, buy a garment, and that garment's being fulfilled by someone that's got one of these machines. They'll take that one order and print and ship. So we saw a really, really, really big growth in that area. Are you still seeing that trend continue even after the pandemic? Do you think that it's something that a lot of shops should start looking into? Stop just trying to figure out how to print bulk shirts and sell them to brick and mortar and kind of get online and get automated?
POD setups are great for medium to large businesses. And again, it's about how many shirts are you looking to get out a day. We have solutions if you want to do 1,000 shirts a day, to if you want to do 10,000 shirts a day. And that's why we really need to determine what your output is to provide you the best recommended solution.
Yeah.
And I think like people that are smaller shops or medium-sized shops are oftentimes don't want to look at POD because they think that the software, the scanning system is not there, but Brother's there to support you through all that. So maybe if you're scared of that.
We have third-party workflow automation software providers, or we also provide an API.
Yeah.
And you can plug in. We do not charge for the API documentation.
What?
So two options really. We can introduce you to some of these third-party software providers,
Or build your own.
build your own, and we provide you that API documentation.
Exactly, so that's what I'm saying. Like there's solutions for you out there. So smaller shops, medium-sized shops that would like to get into POD because they see that the market's growing and there's opportunities. Don't be scared and ask questions. I think the biggest mistake you can make as a shop owner is not having resources and contact because you're scared. And I said that in the last podcast. I think it was like my biggest mistake in this industry is not getting out there enough, not talking to people. Hey, how do you do this? How do you do that? There's solutions out there. People smarter than us, smarter than everybody, has thought about these things. So don't be scared to ask. Hey, I'd like to do POD. What's the solution for automations, right? How can I have my scan and my logo pop up in the machine?
And I'll say it again, call Zach.
Yeah.
I got a couple of solutions for you.
Exactly.
I mean, one thing, a lot of small shops are afraid to get into POD. And I see a lot of shops that are, you know, far out of the city, and they find it a struggle to make a good living serving their small local market. And I think, you know, the era that we're living in, and with POD, you get the ability to tap into unlimited markets. I mean, when I was in my garage, we were printing and shipping shirts on Etsy, and 85% of my business was shipped to the United States. There's solutions out there to get the shipments into the United States
to you as a printer.
Exactly. We only did 7% in Canada. It was like 85 US, 7 Canada, like 5 Australia, and the other 3 or 4 was assorted, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's something that people need to be more open-minded about, because that's just going to take your audience of your, you know, small community where you're trying to get, you know, the camps and the schools and the churches, and really blow it up to the world, right?
Yeah.
I think it's definitely something that people really need to hone in on.
It's not like this guy knows what he's talking about. He's just built super small businesses where he's doing like 10,000 orders a day, individual orders. So don't listen to him about POD. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm getting my toes wet here, dipping my toes in the water. So we were talking about earlier about, you know, the print quality with Brother, and one of the pitches from some other brands are, hey, you know, it's great to pre-treat in line because it reduces labor. My experience is when you're printing wet on wet, you're not getting that level of detail. It's just not possible. I mean, think about it. If you're dropping an ink drop into something wet, it's going to kind of spider out, which is something that I struggled with the previous platform. What's your take on that? Do you think that Brother has a quality advantage because they're pre-treating separate from the printing?
Brother has decided a long time ago that we were going to have basically a wet and dry printing process, right? So basically cure, print, cure, etc. And we're going to maintain that moving forward.
Yeah. I think it's a strategy. I've always, you know, when I got some really expensive machines in my place, I'm excited. It's like you buy a Ferrari, like I'm gonna go fast and I'm gonna look good while I'm doing it. I remember I got my machine in, I'm taking pictures on the crate, I'm like, I'm gonna kill it. And I start, you know, some of my bigger customers saying, I got a new machine, I'm gonna print for you. I'm sending the prints to the customers, they're like, hey man, I don't know what you bought, but start putting my stuff back on the Brother, literally. And then we're like, wait, what did we do, right? So I think that that's always been a strength of Brother. And again, they're the ink set. Do you want to talk about, it's still Enobella?
Yes.
Textile ink.
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that? You know,
it's proprietary Brother inks.
Yep.
It's
made by Brother.
Direct from Brother. We also make the print heads,
which is important.
So both the ink and the print heads maintained and owned by Brother directly.
And the software, and the RIP.
And the GTX graphics lab, correct.
So Brother, I mean, you look at a lot of these other competitors in the space, you have X Machine running an Epson printhead, running a DuPont ink. It's kind of all over the place, right?
Some of the competition does outsource some of their parts, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's an advantage that you guys have, because you know how important it is to have an ink line that speaks to the print head. So everything is designed by Brother to all work seamlessly together. And again, I think that's another huge advantage that you guys have always had.
And do you want to go into detail as to more, like, for me as a large format print background, we used to buy bulk ink system, and we understood that when you start doing that and bought some cheaper inks, that the print heads would often get clogged or not be good anymore because of the bulk ink. There was no degassing system, so air would go into the print heads. Now, like the first time,
our printers have the degassing system. It also has the white ink circulation every 4 hours. That white ink is going to circulate in the tanks, the sub-tanks, the lines, all the way up to the print head.
Yeah, it's huge.
But it's not purging the ink.
Yeah.
It is simply circulating it.
So talk about savings there, because that's a big thing too.
That
talk
it
about
doesn't clog your line.
Yeah. So that's going to extend head life and reduce waste, right?
But it also allows you to go on vacation.
Yeah, that's nice.
And you can go on a 2-week vacation and come back on Monday morning and your printer's in tip-top shape, ready to go.
Yeah.
And the degassing.
And that's what separates up. You do not need to run these printers every single day
Yeah.
to maintain them.
So I think
Take the vacation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. If you own a print shop, you can still get away with your family, is what Rick's trying to say.
Exactly.
You know, I think one of the reasons why Shawn brought that up, the GTX Pro series does not have degassing, correct?
The pouch series is a little bit different. It still does circulate the white ink, though.
Correct.
In the print head.
So I explained
just not in the actual pouch because there's no agitator
Exactly.
in there. So it is a little bit different. But the Pro B and the 600 do agitate in the tanks, the sub
it's a
tanks, the
bulk
lights,
system.
and the print head.
So it
is a bit different.
I try to explain this to customers that the ink in the
They'd have to
pouch
manually
is
shake it in the
different than the
morning.
Pro B,
Yes.
and we have customers sometimes that try and buy the bulk tanks, get the bags.
Yeah, it's not gonna work.
Really bad idea.
Not gonna work.
You heard from brother. It is not recommended. I'm not trying to get you to buy the ink in the pouches. It's a no-no, right?
Correct.
No, for sure. And like people that are looking at buying either Pro or Pro B, for me at first when I first called you because I wanted some Pros, you're like, well, why do you want the Pros? Like you have the volume for the Pro Bs, and I told you the first thing, well, it's a bulk system. I've had nightmares about air in my ink, so I don't want that. He was like, no, the system degasses everything. I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll get Pro Bs instead, because I didn't know that, and that was super smart from brother. I don't know if the technology was invented, whatever, but for us that made me understand, like, oh, okay, that's fine. All my ink is going to be circulated, degassed before going into the print head. So if you're scared because you have large format printing like I was and I didn't sleep because it cost me a lot of money, don't worry. Whenever you're pouring ink in your machine, you see bubble, it's going to be degassed. Right?
And that's the crazy thing, you know, you're investing in a premium brand, okay?
Yeah.
And the bags are degassed at the factory level. And now you're grabbing a syringe and you're putting air into the pouch, which is designed to have no air.
No.
Talking about DTF and that, it's very important. You walk around the show right now, what are you seeing with the majority of the machines? You are seeing a ink bottle that is being shaken up and then poured directly into the tank that doesn't have a degassing system, which is introducing air into lines, right?
I think that's probably, to be honest, I think that's one of the biggest problems all the DTF machines have right now.
Totally.
Is the air in the ink. And that's my opinion from my background with large format and trying to save money on ink. So we bought bulk system and then China's ink from our machines, the Roland's, and we screwed those machines up because of that. They were really, really good machines.
Yeah.
We threw 2 out the window because of that. So on our own, we screwed them up.
Yeah.
And we didn't know. So I learned there that air in your ink is not good at all. So yeah, that's a quick insight as to my 2 cents on the Chinese DTF printers. But yeah, I don't know anything. I just know what I know, right?
I don't know anything. I just bought 2 of them and threw them in the dumpster pretty quick.
Don't tell anybody. I lost money with those. That's fine.
Great.
That's a learning curve.
Cool. So what else? Anything else cracking here?
No, this was great. We appreciate you coming by the brother booth. And you know, we appreciate the partnership with RB Digital, of course. And
It's been a long partnership.
Thank you for being a loyal brother customer.
Yeah.
We
Love
look
the
forward. We
machine.
look forward to many more years.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
appreciate everything.
We're excited to really continue to grow with you guys. We're very excited to have you guys as partners. You guys are always thinking outside the box. There's some other pieces of technology here that we shot some videos on as well that you guys will be able to see eventually. So those of you who have the brothers, you feel like you're not using them enough, do not rush to sell them. Keep them. There's some crazy stuff coming down the pipeline. You'll get those things back up and running. And again, it's another testament to brothers' ingenuity, their ability to think outside the box, literally, and push the boundaries in our industry. So once again, Rick, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care. Have a great day, guys. See ya.
Cheers.
If you didn't make it this year to Impressions, it's always here next year. This is my 10th year minus a year during the pandemic. I think they shut down for 1 year, if I'm not mistaken. So we're shooting a lot of content on a lot of different platforms. We'll have all that stuff online at RB Digital World. On Instagram, you could follow us. And thank you very much for tuning in.
Remember to call Zach.
Call Zach, and I'll give you their numbers as well. See you guys.
Ciao.